like sinking when I'm standing in your place. So I look to the future and I book another flight. When everything feels heavy, I've learned to travel light. But I wanna be here, truly be here, to watch the ones that I love bloom. And I wanna make room to love them through and through and through and through the slow and barren seasons too. I feel hope deep in my bones. Tomorrow will be beautiful. Yeah, I'm ready. God, I'm ready. Oh, I'm ready. Restless and hungry. I'm ready for whatever comes next. I remember the minute, just like a switch was flipped. Was just a kid who grew up strong enough to pick this armor up and suddenly fit. God, that was so long ago, long ago, long ago. I was little, I was weak and perfectly naive, and I grew up too quick. Now you won't see all that I have to lose, and all I've lost in the fight to protect it. I won't let you in, I swore never again. I can't afford, no, I refuse to be rejected. I wanna break these bones till they're better. I wanna break them right and feel alive. You were wrong, you were wrong, you were wrong. My healing needed more than time. When I see fragile things, helpless things, broken things, I see the familiar. I was little, I was weak, I was perfect too. Now I'm a broken mirror, but I can't let you see all that I had to lose, all I've lost in
Test,
the
test.
fight to protect it. I can't let you in.
Yay. Well, good evening, everyone. Good to see you. Thanks for turning out. It's getting dark now, isn't it? Where's the summer gone? I don't like it. Autumn equinox on Friday, isn't it? So it must mean it's drawing on. Let's put that on there, out the way. Yeah, Bryony and Nathan are going to be leading the session tonight, and look forward to that, about kind of finding our place, finding our identity, who we are, what's our mix and stuff, something a bit like that. And but I've just got a few things to say at the beginning. One is we have, well, first of all, what a great week KLS was. The KLS 5-day. Oh my goodness, it's like it was so refreshing to actually get back in it and to really feel the presence of God and to just sense that flow going. We had a good number turn out. Good, there was 35 booked on, I believe, and a number showed up every night, and there was a real kind of momentum, wasn't there, Sue? It was really good. It was really good, and when we've kind of had a bit of a muted 2 or 3 years, we're not kind of able to gather together, and then people have sort of got out of the habit a bit. It was just really good to have that 5 days of. It was hard work. Don't get me wrong. It was very hard work, but it was really, really good, and it's just confirmed in my heart that whole KLS, the training and equipping thing, is part of our DNA. The conference thing, it's sort of who we are and what we do, and to connect with that again has been very reaffirming for me. So I just want to say thank you to all of the team who worked throughout the week in order to keep that going, and it really was. The many hands did make lighter work. I mean, it was quite heavy for all of them, but it was lighter than if one person was doing it. Well, we wouldn't be able to do it if one person was doing it. So that's good. We like that. I wanted to just say as well, we've really good to see Alistair back. Alistair was with us all week, and I think he found it encouraging and he found it challenging, and he's still in quite a sad place at the moment, kind of just adjusting to life at the moment, but is embracing it wholeheartedly. And so we bless, and I would ask you to just keep praying for him. In the light of the fact, obviously this year we've lost 2 key members, Tim and Karen, and now Alistair really is not able to come back yet, 3 from our core team, and it kind of has left us a little bit depleted. So we've taken a sort of temporary decision at the moment to draft in a little bit of extra help for a 6-month period until we can review kind of what we're doing. So let me explain the rationale behind that, because when we first came up with the core team, we had a big kind of vote and all of this sort of stuff, and that was kind of really to reaffirm a team that hadn't been in existence for a little while, and we did that. But at the moment, what we've done, we need a little bit of help in certain areas, and one of them is in sharpening up the evangelistic side of the church again. And so with that in mind, we have asked Jan to come and sit alongside us for 6 months to just challenge us, and to, Jan, over the years that KLS was running, seriously led over 100 people to the Lord. I mean, it's like she was just relentless at it, and I think she feels that something's getting stirred up there again. And so we've just asked her to come and sit alongside us for those 6 months to see how it goes and see how we can begin to sharpen ourselves up. So she's going to be sitting in with us. And another one that really has been going on for the last sort of few years anyway is Vivi. Vivi's been in the core team, kind of doing all the notes and all of the keeping us in order and doing all the organisation. But with the KLS thing going on and with the conferences, VB coordinates all of those things almost single-handedly. The top level coordination of it. There's lots of people working on it, of course, but there is someone who kind of grabs it and runs it, and she was in there with her marigolds most of the week. And because we feel this is like a core part, the conferences and the training and the equipping, what we've done is we've recognised the input that Vivi's been bringing over those years anyway, and we've drafted her for these 6 months as well, just to kind of, these are temporary things while we work out. We're in a shifting and changing times. Everything is changing at the moment. We're emerging from a season, and we're really we're not saying this is us now for the next sort of 20 years or whatever. We're kind of saying, Lord, we're trying to perceive the direction that you're leading us, but these are the areas that we feel you're smiling on, and that really we need to sharpen up on at this stage. So I just wanted to inform you about that. So if you see them around and kind of taking a little bit more of a lead, or being in the front a little bit more, then that is why. Is that okay? Any questions, please come and talk to me. Now, we are blessed to have such a huge gathering of incredibly talented people, and that there are lots of people who I would love to have working with us at different times. But what we have to do is to discern at the precise moment what is right for this time, okay? And we prayed about it kind of long and hard in the core team, and really kind of battered it to and fro and so on. And the ones that we felt the Holy Spirit was sharing with us was those ones for this moment, okay? That's our reasoning behind it, and I think it will probably change, because I feel like everything is going to shift dramatically within this next 12 months anyway, and we will probably need to grow again as we embark on different things. So, was there anything else I needed to say? I don't think so. Those were the main things. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Bryony and Nath.
Lovely. He did say he's going to be 5 minutes, but I mean, once he gets going, don't know, I reckon it was longer than that. Excuse me. Well, that's all right. I haven't got too much to say. Yeah, so this evening we're going to be looking at, well, we were told it was like knowing yourself, personal growth, kind of how do you help yourself, I suppose, in that way. So I'm going to be looking a bit at kind of personal growth. What is that? How do we do that? That kind of stuff. We're going to have some discussion questions, and then Bry's going to come up with, and you'll use all the paper on your table, so, which will be fun. So let's start off with this kind of first verse. I was thinking who is our example for growing and stuff like that, and I think it was probably Jesus. Because although we think, oh, Jesus, he just comes out kind of fully formed as ready to go and do the miracles. But it doesn't say that. In Luke, it talks about how he had to grow in wisdom and in stature and in favour with God and all of the people. Okay, so this is when he was in the temple and his mum and dad have left him there. And then suddenly it says right at the end of Luke 2 that he is someone who had to grow. And if Jesus had to grow in personally and wisdom and favour and all that stuff, then I think we probably do too. A little earlier on in Luke, there was another person who said grew as well, and that was John the Baptist. That's at the very end of Luke 1. He said I think it's something like he grew in stature and became strong in the spirit, or something like that. It's the very last verse in Luke chapter 1. And having seen these two together, I wondered what the word grew meant, what grow was actually in the what that was trying to describe. And in the first one, so in the John the Baptist one, it is like literally how a plant grows. It's just, something gets bigger, a baby grows, stuff like that. But when Luke is describing Jesus, it isn't that. It is this word, which I'm not, well, maybe I should try. Prokopto. I mean, that's what it says, but there's a little thing over the O, so I'm not entirely sure how you say that. Anyway, but it's not quite as nice as the nice kind of growing plant. We think of personal growth, oh, Jesus plants the seed, and then the Holy Spirit comes and waters it, and it's really nice and happy, and we like that. But this word doesn't seem to mean that. So metaphorically, it means to promote, to forward, to further, to advance, to proceed, but it's actually to beat forward, to lengthen out by hammering as a smith forges metals. yeah, it's not quite so good, is it? But there is something about that. You know, we've been going through these hard times and kind of like Phil was saying, like, what's happening? It feels like we've been chasing our tails a bit, actually, trying to run to catch up and kind of not quite getting it. But God's been doing something through these times. These have not been wasted. We haven't just been waiting around, waiting for stuff to happen. God's been doing things. And if we treat these past times as if they have just been a waste and we haven't been doing what we're meant to be, then we won't see what's been going on. And so it's really important that we understand that God is going to grow wisdom and grow us personally through the bad stuff as well as the good stuff. We want all of the good stuff, obviously. But I do wonder if kind of we need that kick up the backside of like something going wrong for us to begin to seek God again, to begin to really get in and push into him and what he's doing. I don't know why that is the case, but we seem to just kind of revert back into it. So how do we do kind of growing and stuff like that? Well, the first one is if we want something new to happen, we need to do something new. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. Now, sometimes, amazingly, stuff does change. You know, there is something like if you want to break, so if you split wood, if you ever split logs or anything, sometimes you get some chunky old logs, and you have to do the same thing over and over again in the same place, and eventually something happens. But I don't think that's really the case, so we need to try and find new things to step into, new voices to hear, new experiences to have, and I think we need to give them a chance. It's very easy for us when we're stepping into something new, we're hearing something new that we, if you start a new series or whatever, a box set on telly, and you think, well, we'll give this a go, this is meant to be good. If you only watch the first episode, you're kind of like, well, I don't really connect with these people because they're just doing something, they're doing whatever. But you need to kind of give it a couple of episodes, and then by the end of the third episode, you're like, well, now it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm looking at Jen thinking, are we going to watch another one, or are you going to go to bed? But we have to give these things a chance. You know, when Netflix comes up with, are you still watching this? And you realise, oh, maybe we should stop. It's getting out of the routine. It's taking a risk. It's doing all that stuff that we talk about, but sometimes we don't always do. So trying something new. Sharing thoughts and dreams with other people, I think, can lead to growth and lead to new things happening, certainly. So just because I've been thinking, we've just had KLS, I was thinking today about how KLS started. And so I can tell it from my side, me and Jen were driving home from church, and I said to her, I think we should maybe try and do a worship school. And Jen said, oh, right, well, that's interesting, and asked me some questions about, what do you know what that would be like? I said, no, and then I moved the conversation on quickly because I didn't have any answers for it. Well, a couple of days later, Jen sees Bri and just happens to mention, oh, Nath said this thing the other day about a school, and Bri said, oh, yeah, I've been thinking about something like that, but and then, of course, Bri mentioned it to Phil, and then suddenly I was in a meeting with Brian, Phil, and someone else, and it was like, well, so what does this look like then? How are we going to do this? And it all escalated a bit quickly. But it just came from sharing something that I had just been pondering for a little while, having known that we were meant to have some kind of thing happening. And that is how it happened. It was just a conversation in a car. And then people grabbed it and ran with it. And I wonder if we just mentioned something to someone. Oh, I've just been thinking about this. It doesn't have to be someone completely random in the church that you don't really know, but just one of your friends It doesn't have to be Phil and Heather. It doesn't have to be anyone special. But something happens when we come and we share, and there's a vulnerability in that where we get to grow in as well. And of course, we're all one body. Paul talks about we're all one body, but we're many parts, and we need everybody involved. We need everybody's ideas and gifts and oomph and energy and all that stuff. So that's really good. So why don't we move on to discussion, because I've talked a bunch. So you've got a few questions there. You can see it there under discussion 1. What was a time that you felt like you had a period of growth in your life? What were the hallmarks of that growth, and what was the catalyst for that growth? I think if you can think about what was the catalyst for that growth, we might be able to get into something interesting. So we'll have maybe 10 minutes. Yeah, that'll be all right. When are we meant to finish this? 9, fine. Yeah, 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll come back together, and it would be lovely if some people could share a point or two. Thanks, everyone. Hello. Okay. Would anyone like to share anything that they've discussed or anything they've discovered? Was there a theme that ran through stuff? Or sorry? Taking risks. Very good. Yeah, that's very key, isn't it? Stepping out of what? Stepping out of the routine. Definitely. Very good. Stepping into something new. On our table, we noticed that you kind of get to a slightly desperate place sometimes, and a lot of it was kind of you're trying to make something happen, and then there's a moment where you just surrender, and then things change. Like there's a letting go of what I think this should be, how I think this should work, whatever. And I have to just kind of let that go and let this new thing come, because if I keep holding on to the old thing, it might be the very thing that's stopping the new coming. So risk and surrender. Very good. Any others? Anyone like to?
We had a lot of agreement really here, but it involved things like sometimes trouble, difficulties, almost always sort of change, a cost, maybe fear, maybe financial, maybe inconvenience, and was there another? Yeah, a sense of sort of pilgrimage, having to put ourselves out too, and often that element of, you know, the process isn't necessarily fun, you know, and sometimes you get, I said I've often used the expression, I never want to go through that again, but I wouldn't have missed it for the world because of the fruit that comes out of it. But it's not necessarily easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember a pastor talking about, you know, he would go and visit people, and he would say, well, just tell me your story. And it would always start off with something bad. He would say, it would without a doubt, their story would start off with something bad, and then they'd say, but, and then da-da-da-da. And I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but I'm glad that it happened, you know. It kind of comes down to the kind of hammer thing. Got up there with a hammer. It's not that he wants to take us down a peg or two or anything like that. But there is something about us getting into difficulty that makes us pliable, that makes us kind of surrender and risk and go on a pilgrimage, you know, take that step and move into something new. So I hope you found that helpful. Bri, do you want to come up and we'll do Bry's stuff? Very exciting. You'll get to use all the paper now.
Yes, well done, Nate. Yeah, it reminds me of a little quote from Richard Rohr that says that growth, spiritual growth and advancement comes from either great suffering or great love. And those things seem to be like either those uncomfortable moments of something's got to shift, or that motivation of like absolute love, we're just going to follow. Interesting to think about. You can use both. We're going a little bit practical now, really, and I just wanted to share a tool that I found really useful for personal growth over the last few years, something I've come across. And has anyone come across the Enneagram before? Anyone dipped into that? Anyone know their type already? Maybe not sure, thinking about it. Okay, that's good to know. So anyone never heard of it, not sure what you're on about? Okay, that's cool as well. So just a very quick bit of background of what it is. It's a personality type system, really. A little bit like a Cosmo quiz. Are you an autumn or a spring? But this is a really old one, so old that no one's quite sure where it started. They know that the desert fathers and mothers in like the 3rd and 4th century talk about it. If you've heard about the 7 deadly sins, those deadly sins were supposed to correspond to the different personality types, and that's is as old as that. And the idea is that there's these different personality types, and each of them have some strengths, and each of them have some weaknesses, and that's where that kind of notion. But obviously, the sins bit, it was like the clickbait, the headline grabber, and that was the bit that lasted and got a bit more famous. So very ancient. In the 70s, it got picked up more by modern psychology and counselling, and then it sort of made its way into Christian counselling and spiritual formation, and is used a lot by like monks and Franciscans and different traditions that like to use it. There we go. That was vague, wasn't it? I can't remember the names, but there's your headlines of where it's come from. And yeah, I started reading this book, and I'd really recommend it for anyone that's interested in dipping into this a little bit more. It's called The Road Back to You. And it's wonderful. It's a really interesting book. It's written by someone called Ian Morgan Cron, and he does a little thing of like acknowledging some of the things we think to start with when someone says we're going to do a personality test, which was useful for me because I was thinking all of those things when I started reading it, of like, this is going to be stupid. I don't want to be put into a box. Why would I want that? I've done all of the ones before, you know, your NFTS or whatever it's called, there's different letters in that, I could never remember, and your red shapes and boxes and triangle pointy things, and none of it really took with me, mostly because every time I got told I was this one, I was like, I don't fancy being stuck in that forever. So the way he talks about this one is that we're not putting anyone in a box. The aim of the Enneagram is to show you the box you're in already and how to get out of it. That it's describing basically that it's personality types. It's not who you really are. Who you are is this like precious, unique soul. And when you come into the world, we all have to learn a way to get by. And we all kind of assume a sort of role that gets us what we need, that helps us find a smooth course through life, a kind of coping strategy for dealing with life. And there's some good things about it, and there's some bad things about it, and there's none of them are any better than the other or worse than the other. It's all just, you know, ways we tick, really. And the thing that's so helpful about it, I think, is also that it's aiming towards spiritual, personal growth. So just because I've got that label doesn't mean I have to stay this way. And here's some ways I can push myself and grow, and some things that would help me to move past just those labels. And I thought, as we got some painter and decorators, I'd use his other little analogy. He was saying, if anyone's worried that there's only 9 types, and how could you possibly sum up the whole world in only 9 personality types? He said, well, just imagine when you've gone to B&Q to go and pick the shade red to paint a wall, how many different shades of red there are in there that it blows your mind, and you inevitably will come back with the wrong one and be told to go back and, no, it wasn't fuchsia red, it was scarlet red or whatever. And it's the same way with these personality type things. We've got just a few minutes to skim over it and have a look today, but there's all sorts of variables within it that lets you kind of spread your wings a little bit within each of those. But what I'd love us to do is just have a quick look at what the 9 types are. And you've got them on the main handout on the white sheet, which has the Lighthouse logo on the top, has got a little star-shaped thing at the bottom. So this sheet I'm holding up, you've got a copy each. So if you're holding blue paper, you don't need blue paper right now. Mum's just very excited that there's all these different piles of paper and wants to get in. But basically, if you have a look at this little diagram out here, there's 9 types. So if we start with number 1, that's called the reformer, or sometimes called the perfectionist. And this is someone who likes things done a certain way, and they like to do things excellently, and they can see the things that are a bit wrong in the world, and they just want to make them right. It's like, oh, we could fix this, you know. They're sort of hardwired to spot the things that are going a bit wrong, and they like things, let's just put it right. Let's find a better way to do this. Number 2 is the helper. And this is the person that would give you the coat off their own back, you know. They would just do anything to show you how much they love you, and they want to cook for you, and they'll be round. They're like, bought you every Christmas present you can imagine. They've, you know, Debs. There are Debs. Yeah, they just love you. They love you, and they just pour out that love in all sorts of ways to help and support and encourage. And they just want to be recognised and loved back, really. That's a lovely thing. Number 3, the achiever. So this is someone who excels at whatever they do, and they can go into any environment, and they kind of can almost like change who they are a little bit to blend in, to just be excellent in that environment. So when they're at business, you know, they're perfectly comfortable wearing the business suit, they're groomed, they're ready to go and do that excellently, but then they can go and switch to the next thing. I'm thinking of someone like Pete Warbis, he can be excellent in his job. He's an animator, does all this fantastic stuff, but then he can go and get on stage and he does this, and then he's in a band and he can go and do that. He's just a very talented guy, and he can like persuade anyone to do anything because he's just charming, excellent, likeable guy who gets stuff done. Number 4 is the individualist. So sometimes that's called the artist, and they're unique people. They like to be unique. And if you're an individualist and you're hearing the whole idea of being put in one type, you're probably going, not me though, I probably won't find one because I'm not like that. But these are like really creative people who are quite in their feelings, have big feelings, and can have like 27 different feelings in one day. And they're all valid and real, just like emotional people who are in touch with how they feel, and are often very creative, and just love starting new projects and making stuff. And sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming of how many creative ideas they've got. They can't start them all. It's just like, just bubbling with creativity and emotion and lovely in-touchness. Number 5 is the investigator. And so this is someone who typically like maybe is a little bit on the outside looking in, and they just like to like check out. I had a little description of like when they were kids, they were the one that was watching all the kids playing the game, and they would just see what the rules are and decide if they wanted to join in or not. They weren't the one that went charging in straight away. And the investigator loves to acquire knowledge and just read and find things out and kind of hoard that away quite in a strong interior life, like inner life, thoughtful, and finds it quite exhausting going to big group things. They have to kind of measure out their energy and interaction because they know it's going to take a toll on them if they go and do a lot of social events, and then they need a little bit of time to go and recharge by themselves again. Number 6, the loyalist. This is someone who incredibly loyal, as it says in the name. They don't like change very much. When they're in, and they want things to stay the same, and are sometimes seen as being a bit of a pessimist. Like if you come with an idea, they'll straight away find all the holes in it and everything that could go wrong. They've got that kind of disaster thinking that will find everything that could go wrong. But it's their way of showing that they love you and they care about your project, because they don't want those bad things to happen. So they'll point them all out so you can fix them before you go and do it. It doesn't mean don't do it. It means I just want to protect you from all of this stuff. So let's think it through and think of the worst thing that could happen. They're very good at health and safety. They're Chris, basically. Number 7 is the enthusiast. This is someone who craves adventure, wants to make everything fun for everybody all the time. And if they've got a day off, it's almost like paralyzing trying to think of what to do on that one day off, because you want to do everything and how you're going to pack everything in that time. And I'm a 7. Yes, just want to make everything fun and delicious. And if you're going to a new city, they're the person to ask because they probably know where all the tastiest places are and the interesting things to see and how to make it a fun adventure. But really suffer from the FOMO, the fear of missing out, and can find it very hard to commit to one thing because of that fear of what you'd have to say no to say yes to that. And so typically people that like to do short projects one after another rather than like signing a contract forever because that's a bit scary. 8 is the challenger. And this is the person who is like, it's my way or the highway. Strong sense of justice, wants to speak up for the person who's downtrodden, will just like go in all guns blazing to get it done, and will not let anything turn them away or discourage them from doing the right thing, because they've got such a strong sense of good and evil, and they just want to pursue that good thing. And often strong leaders find it quite hard to like show the more tender and vulnerable side of their heart, because what are people going to do with that? You know, got to be strong, got to get stuff done. So in all of those, there's like really positive, beautiful, lovely things about it, and there's always some downsides as well. And the idea is that finding out your type doesn't limit you to that, but gives you an invitation to like feel known, feel seen, realize, oh, I'm not the only one like this. There's like a lot of us who are trying to just find our way in the world, and this is the way we've done it. And there's some brilliant tools to help us kind of move on. Oh, 9. Oh, and that would be the worst one to leave out. I can only apologise. So 9s are the ones that when you, it's because it was at the top. I was going to start with that one because it's the best. I'm just saying. 9s. No one can hate a peacemaker. They're so lovely. When you ask a 9 what type they think they might be, they're like, I'm probably all of them. I don't know. I can see myself in all of those, because they can. They're great listeners. They just want everyone to be happy. They don't really like confrontation, and they could be talking to 7 different people who all have 7 different opinions, and they can totally see that person's point, and they feel it themselves. I totally agree with you. And then they hear the next person, and you are absolutely right too. I can totally see where you're coming from. And there's such a peaceable nature to that. But it's quite hard to then figure out, but what do I think? What is my opinion? And that can be quite an uncomfortable thing to be put on the spot and asked to just say straight away, like, what do you think? What is your opinion? What do you want to do? They'd like to just, I don't know, I just want to go along with what's going to make you all happy and have a nice time. So, yeah, we love a peacemaker. So, there they are. What I've got is some blue bits of paper now. You can have your blue bits of paper. And there are 2 copies of like 20 questions. And you can have a little flick through those. Hopefully there's enough so that you can have them in a 2 or a 3 each. And just have a look through and see if you recognise your type in one of those. Hearing that summary, maybe you feel like there's one you want to go to first, and that will give you an inkling. But just have a flick through and see if you can find your type in there. And then you've got some discussion questions you can have a look at about, like, do you recognise your type? What resonates? What strengths and weaknesses and traits do you recognise there? And then we'll have one last question after that. So you can ignore the bit of paper that's got the security and stress on for now. We'll come back to that one. Oh, and I should say, sorry, just a quick one. There's another little bundle of paper that's the pretty one with the heart on, if I can borrow this for a sec. When you think you've narrowed down on what your type might be, and for the purposes of this evening, please don't stress about, have I got the right one or not? It doesn't matter, it's all right. It's just interesting to have a look. But if you're a bit more visual like me, or Mandy probably, then there's this lovely little bit of artwork that's taken some of those traits and drawn out a map of your heart with some of those like traits and things in a visual way. It's just another way to look at the same thing. That's quite fun. Sorry, I realised I didn't say what the other. Sorry, these two tables, you ignore me because we've already talked about it. But the stress and the security sheet, the final bundle that we haven't unpacked yet, this is one of the things that I found to be most useful about Enneagram, which is that you don't just go, oh, okay, well, I'm a 7, good for me, and then just move on. Nice thing to know, a little bit of knowledge, trivia. But what it does is it shows you, if you look at the little diagram on the white sheet, there are arrows pointing from your number to 2 other numbers. And the idea is that when you're stressed, you draw on the negative side of one of those other numbers. And when you're you're well and you're healthy, then you pull on the positive side of the other one. So if to see how it works, I'll show you my one. I'm 7, enthusiast. When I'm stressed out and a bit overstretched, then I start drawing on the negative aspects of 1, which is the perfectionist. So I get a little bit like, I'm just going to do it myself. I'm going to do it in my order, and then I know it's going to be done. And that's a little symptom of like, oh, I might be taking on too much. I'm not doing too well because I'm getting a bit rigid about this. But when I am doing well, then I draw on the positive side of 5, the investigator. And for me, that looks like being able to have a little bit of quiet time by myself and just being happy in my own company, just reading, thinking about things, just having that space to kind of be a bit of a dreamer and just be content, not zipping from one thing to another. And so if I notice that that's disappeared from my life, then it's another little, I need to make some space to do that, because that's a little symptom that I'm not doing too well at the minute, and I can make a choice to carve out that time. Your type will have its own set of ones, but that's what those little arrows and lines are for, and it's to help, it's useful. And that final blue bundle, if you find your type, it'll explain the type that you draw on under stress and the type that you draw on when you're doing well in security. And the bit I haven't said, the final thing, there's a little line to meditate on at the end that comes from this book, which is like something for spiritual growth. And they were saying it's good to take a little truth and just ponder on it in your time with God for your type. And there's a suggested one on each of those. And it might not make sense to you, but it's just something to talk to Jesus about and just pray about and ponder. All right, so hopefully you've had a chance to flick through. Don't worry if you haven't arrived at a concrete thing at the end. It's not about that. It's just like knowing ourselves is one of the biggest things of learning to love ourselves and let God love us. But also it's one of the biggest things to like know how to get out of our own way sometimes. And having a little bit of taking time to look at the positives and the negatives of these, I think is so useful, just so that you can spot, you know, when I'm doing that thing again, it means I'm not limited by it. Like, I know I get that FOMO every time, and I find it very hard to say and commit to something because I'm worrying about the other options. But if I know that and I recognise it, I'm not limited by it anymore, and I can go, look, I'm just doing that thing again. It's not who I am. That's just the way I've found to get on in the world, and I can make a different choice if I want to. And it's okay. I've been trying to find things that help me embrace the JOMO, the joy of missing out. That was from the Domino's advert, and I've so witnessed with it. When the pizza arrived, the movie was on, they put their feet up in the slippers, and it was all about the JOMO. I was like, oh, yes, I could do that. I could enjoy missing out, and that was a revelation. That was spiritual growth. But there's also lots out there. So I don't know what they are for all the different types. But for example, I've really read that contemplative prayer is one of the things that's really advised for a 7 that wants to move on to the next thing and pack it all in. And they're saying take time to be still before God and just be in his presence and no agenda. And I found that very valuable. So if you hear me pushing that kind of thing, it's not because it comes naturally to me, it's because it doesn't come naturally to me that I know it's worth it for me. So hopefully, you know, if you didn't get anything from that, just throw it away and move on, and it's all right. But really, my hope is that we can learn to know ourselves and be kind to ourselves and grow. But also I found it such a useful thing if you get a little chance to talk about it with your spouse or like with your teams, with your home group team, with the prophetic team, whatever. It just is so helpful to just, oh, we don't all think the same way. We're not all motivated by the same things. It sounds obvious, but you accidentally fall into the thing of thinking, well, I'm normal and everyone thinks like me. And there's something very useful going, no, you are abnormal, but so is everyone else. But we all have our own ways of thinking, ticking, and understanding that in each other can help us just stop misunderstanding each other so much and just love each other in the way that we really long to be loved and accepted and recognised. So there we go. It's a tool. And if you're interested at all, the road back to you is brilliant. And here's what the kids are doing on TikTok. If you're into that, there's anyone know Sleeping at Last? Brilliant Christian artist, like beautiful music. It was on when you were coming in at the beginning. But he's written an album called Enneagram Atlas, and the kids, the youth of today, have cottoned on to that. And what they're doing is they're saying, take this free test online, find out your personality type, and then go and listen to the track for your number, and I promise you'll have a breakdown. You'll just cry. And so all the kids are like listening to these songs, feeling known and recognised and accepted for who they are, crying and putting it all on TikTok. It's like, what a weird thing to do, but if the kids like it. But it's such a beautiful album, and honestly, like when I heard the 7 track, I was like, oh, this is everything. I feel so known. So Sleeping at Last is the artist. Enneagram Atlas is the album, and there's 1 track for every personality type. And free test isn't bad. I thought about sending it out before, but it looks very new agey. And I thought I just need to tell you that Christian people do it first before I send that out, in case everyone thinks we've lost our marbles. But there is a free test, or this guy Ian Morgan Cron has done one. It's called like IE9 or something, is it? I think that's the one you did. It's like 20 quid or something. And you can pay, and it's more in depth, and it's a good source. I've only done the free one, but I sort of read the first one of like, you can make everything an adventure, and I was like, yes, that's me already. But yeah, there are good ones. You can take a test to narrow it down, and a bit like the shades of red, those tests won't just tell you one type, they'll tell you you're 7, but with a bit of this, and you're leaning more on that and drawing from this, just so that you get to see your own kind of flavour of it a bit more. Anyway. Spring within us. He wrote the original Enneagram book. He has his own Enneagram book that inspired this one. So, and that's with a much bigger focus on spiritual growth and different tools for that as well. I think that one's just called Enneagram, and it's by Richard Rohr. That's a very fun rabbit hole to start reading Richard Rohr. Anyway, I thought I'd just close, if that's all right, with a blessing prayer, which is John O'Donoghue's Blessing for Solitude. This is it. May you recognize in your life the presence, power, and light of your soul. May you realize that you are never alone, that your soul in its brightness and belonging connects you intimately with the rhythm of the universe. May you have respect for your individuality and difference. May you realize that the shape of your soul is unique, that you have a special destiny here, that behind the facade of your life there is something beautiful and eternal happening. And may you learn to see yourself with the same delight, pride, and expectation with which God sees you in every moment. Amen. Amen.
Hugo liked it. I wonder what type he is. I forgot to mention one thing, which is a date for your diaries before we close. October the 30th. It is a Sunday. It's a 5th Sunday, but we've got the architects coming up, and they want to do a little presentation on how far they've got with the new build. They want to kind of show you some pictures and answer a few questions and stuff like that. And we thought we would just have a meeting all together. We haven't quite worked out the logistics of it all as yet, but we will gather together here and kind of have a family meeting and look at what the plans are. We've just got new planning permission through for a smaller building than the original one. We split it into 2, and so what they'll be doing is showing you some pictures on that, and we'll field some questions and we'll generate a bit of discussion. So I'd really like to encourage kind of anyone who thinks they're part of the Lighthouse family to come along and kind of listen, look, learn, get on board, and we'll kind of have a reboot, because it's all kind of sat a little bit dormant for the last 2 or 3 years while the pandemic's been on. So October the 30th, 10:30 in the morning. Okay? Boom, not an evening meeting, no. So there we go. Yeah. Good. Otherwise, thank you for coming. 9 o'clock. Well done, guys. That's impressive.
How nice it'd be if we could try everything. I'm serious, let's make a list and just be